Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's up, everybody? It's your girl Hadija Toto, and you are listening to In Trance You, the podcast, where we are the deliberate creators of our own realities, united in light during the darkest hour. We foster spaces of love, truth, and acceptance because we know we are one people. Living through different simulations, we define and choose to be our own truths while living in a co created environment within multidimensional realities. With that being said, we're just curious to see how others create their world as knowledge and inspiration so that we may create a better world for ourselves in observation. The key here is to actively listen, not to judge, not to debate. It's never a debate, really. It's just us living in our own reality and choosing how we build that. Now, everything I'm going to say, you already know. You don't have to agree or disagree. It's simply sharing. So, without further ado, we have an amazing guest called Lauren Merrill. I'm so excited to introduce her. First of all, she's from Maryland, which is like DMV area, which is like down the street. Y'all know I love my Maryland people. And so she's an energy worker, she's a holistic health teacher, and an intuitive guide. She's studied alternative health, mind, body, and medicine, and meditation, and higher consciousness for the past 10 years. I didn't even know that you could major in these kinds of things, like and go to school in these things, but it's so dope just to have someone who is a warrior spirit and so loving and devoted to her army of light, like she likes to call it, and helping others respond to modern day challenges with mental fortitude and spiritual evolution. So without further ado, I welcome Miss Lauren Merrill. Hey girl.
Hi, that was beautiful. That whole introduction was so fun. I feel like so ready to talk. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
I want to begin by just saying, both Lauren and I were both like kind of like not feeling it today. She was in my inbox and we're talking, and she's like, I don't think I want to talk about what we talked about in the screening. And as I was typing, I told her earlier, I was like, as I was typing everything, I was like, I'm not feeling it today. And it's just
Mhm.
awesome how energy works because we both were kind of having the same feeling, yet we were apart. And it's just having that intuition. So I know like you're an intuitive guide. So can we talk about that? Like, what is that intuition that we kind of low key had with each other before the show?
I know. That was pretty amazing. So, yeah, I had read like the title and we were kind of experiencing because like you said we had the pre-screening like a few weeks ago. We talked about what we thought would be best to offer, like what we could both share for the people, and then the whole thing just felt like off today. And this is actually a really perfect example because what you said about being intuitive is how often are we actually always having these experiences of like, am I feeling that today? Like, is this right for me? Would this be my best zone of operation? Like, am I fully in my energy or do I feel a bit more kind of like shy today? How often are we feeling that, but we don't actually act upon it and share what we're experiencing? Because I, just for the people listening, could have easily been like, oh, I don't know if I'm really in the energy to like talk about that today, but I already committed to it. So I'm going to go through with it, and I'm going to, ignore this feeling I have. But since I really believe in honesty, being intuitive is just feeling and then communicating. We're all intuitive, and it's doing that without putting all these layers of confliction and overcomplicating things and
Mm-hmm.
overthinking things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just said something, and now we have a really epic, like really authentic, live, real time, how we're both doing today rather than how we were doing a few weeks ago, like
Yeah.
application. And that's how people connect through not connecting through these layers of complication, but just being raw and honest and real. So to answer your question, being intuitive is just listening to your like somatic, which is your physical body's experience. Because when I first tuned into the show, I started to feel this like heaviness of like, is that people want to hear from me today? That feels really like intense. And today my energy is so giving and nourishing and like positive, optimistic, radiant, soothing. And it was just different energies. That's all. So I just kept it real with you. And I was like, why don't we like revisit this? And now we both are like on the same page.
Yeah, and it's so amazing because, and it's almost as if the healer in you might have felt my personal energy, because my personal energy, just being transparent with everyone, is there's been feeling like a heaviness, you know, and like what I'll emphasize to everyone is it doesn't matter what career you have, it doesn't matter who you are, you always need a support system set up. And it's a heaviness that I feel personally only healers feel. It's a heaviness of like, it's not like a coaching thing. It's not like oh, we can mindset coach you out of this. Like, I feel like
Mm,
healers were in tune with the spirit, right? And so there's a difference between a mind heaviness and a spiritual heaviness.
yes.
And like feeling that spiritual heaviness, you need that other like spiritual community, and you need that supportive spiritual community because there's things that people aren't going to understand about an awakening, or like that part in you, that phoenix
Mm-hmm.
rising out the ashes coming out, because it looks ugly, it feels ugly. So like, how can you describe that, like as we're in our transformative states and as we're transforming, how do we how do we navigate through that heaviness, like when we're into the thick of it?
Mm-hmm. I think you said it beautifully and perfectly already, where sometimes we have to understand it's not a mind map type experience. When we're starting to go through a transformation, you can't plan and mechanically sometimes try to build the steps forward because one, they often haven't been mapped out yet because the purpose is for you to just literally feel it and process your organic experience that's happening for you and for your heart. Sometimes a lot of that anxiety comes from trying to control more through the mind. You know what I mean? So, really, when you're in it, the greatest thing is to not try to like push it to go a particular way and honor that you are supposed to be going through that process for a reason. You know what I mean? It's so easy to get really scared and think, what's next? How can I control this? What am I not doing good enough? Why is this confusing? Why is this complicated? And I found through healing that a lot of people, when they start to get under a lot of stress, instead of being like, oh, I'm stressed, this is difficult, this is like hard, they
Yeah.
will be like, what did I do wrong that this is so stressful? How do I? And they actually make the stress worse because they start becoming really hard on themselves
Yeah.
for the stress that they're experiencing. And it's actually the opposite of, compassion for yourself to move into that space. So the answer is honestly different for everyone because everyone
Yeah.
has different coping mechanisms for what makes them feel soothed and nourished and nurtured. For some people, they need to be around others. They need to just like talk it through and just like air it out. For some people, they need to be like alone and just let that anxiety settle and like become less confusing for them. So this is the importance of actually learning about who you are and having self-awareness, because truly no one, I can't, you can't, no one can tell another person what's going to work for them through a transformative process. It's more so just knowing that pushing and becoming really mental about your experience can sometimes only feel more like more pressure. Like you said, it can be a heart thing. It's a spirit thing. And, we're in this life with ourselves through the thick of it, through the whole thing. So you might as well learn how to be a bit gentler and softer, because that's where motivation comes from once you're able to tune into your heart a bit.
I love that. I want to take deeper in that part because you know, we all have the feminine and masculine energy. And um in some we function better than others.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
the world has been full of masculine energy, and not in terms of like men this or men no, but like in terms of what the masculine energy is, and that utility, that action, 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 action. And exercising the will all the time. But how do you cultivate that space and fostering of that softness, of that more feminine side? Because we're taught to go hard all the time. And it's like, if we're hard all the time, when are we safe enough to be soft with ourselves? And
Mm.
how do we even do that? Like, what does that look like? Because, you know?
Casual questions. We're obviously going very deep, very deep this episode. Well, I completely agree. We both have, it's about the synergy, it's about like the meeting of the both the feminine and the masculine. For people listening who maybe don't know like what that means, you're talking about the masculine being the one that takes action, the one that uses will to like materialize things in our reality, the go-getting, the manifesting, all this stuff that a lot of people talk about. And the feminine's like receiving. For as much as I give, I also need to receive. For as much as I push, I also need to like feel and, pay attention to what's going on around me. And it's often very, very soft because it understands that ultimately in life, we can't control everything. And there is this giant sea of structure and divinity and information that we can't manipulate fully. And it's actually sometimes more powerful. It can materialize even more by just understanding that and being like, how can I know that that's what I am? Instead
Mhm.
of being in fear of what could happen next, what if I actually understand that like I am part of all of it and I'm always safe because I'm like this radiant living being that is far more powerful than the 3% understanding of our brain and our vision that we have scientifically. So honestly, to answer your question, this is something I'm navigating like on the daily, because I came into this world teen years, like really, really, my heart was like very closed and I became very, very masculine. And I believed that we couldn't control our experiences in life, but we could control the way we respond to them.
Right.
And this is real. This is very true. I started adopting this belief from like such a young age, though, that I also had a subconscious belief that things will always happen and I always have to be on guard and I always have to be strong and ready to like take care of shit because I'm the one I can trust. Like, I'm strong. I got this. I don't know what's going on around me, but like, I have me. And this is why, healing work gets so nuanced and it is about balance, because that's an infinite truth. But what about when your heart becomes so like hurt and closed off that you don't actually allow other people to show you that they have your back like that too? So a lot of
Yeah.
my healing work was about letting myself be taken care of in the way that I take care of other people, and allowing myself to like soften up and understand that I am here to just like be me, and I don't have to try to fix everything all the time. And I don't have to be the one, checking on everyone all the time. This is actually a big theme a lot of people experience, because their comfort zone is trying to make sure everyone around them is good so that they can be good. But what about the point that you have to be good before you can see if other people are good?
That is real. And you see that with parents all the time,
Yeah.
you know?
We like glorify sacrifice to the point of like malnutrition, like
Mm,
spiritual.
yeah. Ooh, ooh. Talk about that just for a little bit. It's like the spiritual malnutrition. How do you even begin to feed spirit?
How do we begin to even feed spirit? I mean, for example, I just took a deep breath with that and like took a moment to feel it, because the first thing that comes through for me is like rush, the energy of rush. We live in this like social world where you have to make it like a goal to pause and just like sit with yourself for a second. And it's very weird and like very unnatural when you really think about it. So I think so many people have, their norm has become being so busy and being so stressed out that tuning into that spirit doesn't even feel accessible. And
Mhm.
for me, I've always really connected strongly with nature because it kind of like does the work for me. Like if I go and I just sit outside, I'm only shown this other world that's much more calm and seems a lot more like organized. You know what I mean? Like everything
Yeah.
has its purpose, everything is special, everything is magical. So really like a lot of that spiritual malnutrition comes from us never having the ability to take that break, you know, and take that pause, and we become, you know, super burnt out. So we have to prioritize cultivating like times devoted just to something sacred, whether that's okay, I have 5 minutes in the morning. I usually scroll through my phone. What would happen if I just take 1 minute to think about what I'm grateful for, and the next 4 minutes to just kind of like literally lay there? You
Yeah.
know, it's really just about observing your patterns and your habits. And instead of, you know, making excuses, thinking, how can I calm some of this static fuzz of stress that's like constantly living in my energy field? You know what I mean? So a
Yeah.
lot of it is just like knowing we don't always have to have the answer, and we don't always have to like rush through, and we don't always have to be on an autopilot mode. Because even like it's been a great journey for me doing like podcasts like this or just speaking, because someone will ask me a question and I immediately feel like I just have to be like spitting fire or have an answer, and I actually don't have to. I can like stop and like pause and really just sit in the question for a little bit to deliver a clear answer. And you don't see people communicating that way a lot anymore. It's
No.
just this like ping pong, like, you know, this ping pong energy.
I love that. It is a lot of things.
You know
That's
what
a
I mean?
great
I'm like,
way
are you here? Like, are
yeah.
we tuned in together? Or are we just trying to like mentally go back and forth? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Ping pong energy. I love that because you know what? Is it just like you get tired of sitting at the ping pong table all the time?
It's very exhausting.
You know, like how long? When do you know to walk away from something?
Like a relationship? What are we talking
It
about?
could be it could be anything. It could be
Anything.
relationship, it could be career, it could be friendship,
Mm.
it could be, it can be your dog. Like when is it when how do you know just spiritually, mentally, physically that enough is enough? And discern that between like just quitting when it's tough and knowing it's time for me to go.
Mm.
Cause that's a big mental battle
It
or
is.
spiritual battle, and it just go ripples everywhere.
Well, the first thing I always think of is like, what's your balance, like for the individual, for you, or for whatever? What's your balance in like tending to your own needs versus someone else's? A lot of times people stay in something because they're only prioritizing the other person or the other, you know, XYZ, whatever their reason for staying in a situation is. I'm just going to give the example of like, I'll give a personal example of when you were saying like, how do you major in these things, like how does that work? And I grew up always knowing that I wanted to study like mind body healing. I always felt so fascinated by ancient cultures and like myth and magic and how things like used to be, in the sense that we used to honor like the unseen more, and we used to honor just the process of one's intuition and like navigating life through a realm of beauty rather than, disconnection and like work, 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 do, do, do. I just believe if you like slow down enough, you can witness so much just in your own life rather than focusing on the negatives. But point is, I always wanted to get really into energy healing, and I started out with Reiki specifically. And I always knew that I wanted to do this, but I had so much fear because one, this was in like, the 2012, 2011, when it wasn't like really cool yet to be doing all of these things. It wasn't like considered a real job or like a real career path. And it was really fascinating because I had so many what ifs and assumptions that I didn't even go after my dreams because I just thought, oh, I won't be able to do it. Oh, like what's going to happen? Because the school that I wanted to go to was in Arizona. And I was from, like, I lived in Maryland. I was born and raised. My whole family was there. I felt so close to my family. I didn't want to like hurt anyone by moving so far because I knew they would miss me. I literally was seeing all the ways if I went to this experience, it would affect other people. And that's part of this question because the first thing you have to ask yourself is like, who am I accounting for right now? Is it actually best for me to leave this situation or am I afraid? Am I staying in it because I'm just thinking about the ripple effect my choice might make on everything around me? And that's when people start living not in their body, mind, or spirit anymore. And they're literally living for other people that have different purposes, different missions, different reasons for being here. And they just start completely shape shifting to people please. And it sucks because it's so like, it's hard. It's really challenging. So we don't want to hurt other people. But point is, I really knew what I wanted to do, but I was so afraid of like leaving. So I stayed, you know what I mean? I like stayed living at home. I actually thought, what else could I do that's just enough? How often do we do this? Like,
Yeah.
what could I like, how can I like win? Like, how can I make
Yeah.
all these people happy, but also like satiate myself enough to be like down for this? Like in
Yeah.
relationships, for example, you're like, maybe if we just like have this one conversation and talk about it again, maybe we'll come to like a new conclusion and we just like repeat these patterns. But point is, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. So I thought I'm going to study social work. Like, great. That would be great. I can still like help people. I still have like this social cause that I'm working towards. And like, I'll stay at home. I applied to a university in Maryland. I was like, I can't wait. This is going to be great. And I really convinced my mind, like, yeah, it's not that you really were feeling originally, but it's like enough and it'll do. Like, it'll work. And long story short, I ended up getting a letter in the mail that was accepting me into the school. And when I opened the letter, I was really excited because I was like, I can't wait to go. And then when I opened the letter, I heard this really loud voice in my head that just said no. And that was one of my first experiences having like a profound like interception with like my path where I was like, oh, and I was like getting into meditation, getting into these things, but it like definitely shocked me because I had never had such a clear message, before for me. So I had the courage to heed that call and I ended up not going to the university. I ended up going to Arizona. I ended up like doing all of it. And it's obviously a longer story, but the point is, there is a reality where I think I could have not gone because I just didn't want to stir the pot and I wanted to be there for everyone that knew me as being there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like when you when you bet on yourself, it's like it's as though you give the rest of the universe essentially a resignation letter. And you're like, okay, I'm exiting this reality. I don't want to say the universe. You're giving the reality an exit letter because you're stepping foot into this whole new reality. And I've told people, I'm like, yo, the day that I leave this earth, do not cry because I need you to understand, even at like 29, like I've traveled, I've lived, and there's so much more life to live. Like you hear older people who are about to die have these conversations, but it's just that when you understand who and what you are, because the mission has just began. And to have this kind of starting point, I mean, that's just because when you've met other people, when you've done other things, and then you look at the reality that everyone else is in, you're just like, why you ooh, whoa.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's like an adventure because and that's what I love about this so much is that we get to see in your world for just an hour. You know, we get to see in your world. We get to see what Lauren does. We get to see what Lauren's past. We get to see, like how she navigated through her personal stuff. And I love that because it's like I have a front row seat in your movie. And everyone else gets to listen and has a front row seat too. And it's like
Yeah.
I'm not attached to your results. And like that's the thing about I think even friendships and just relationships in general is like I'm not attached to your results because those are yours. And I love that our movies are basically like we have a collaborative movie thing going on right now, but it's like I'm okay. Like, the times that I've walked away from things or I've decided it's just almost instinctual, like what you were talking about before. It's just like it just
Yeah.
fades. Or like there's unnecessary energy being used or usually it's like there's a lot of energy being exerted here. And that's how just me opening up is like the that heaviness comes from damn, I'm using all my energy for everyone else and all of their agendas, but I'm not even touching my own. And it's like I'm pushing you and I'm helping you and I'm working
Yeah.
with you and I'm not even pushing my own stuff. And it's like it's one thing to align, right? But it's another thing if when the energy is fine when it's an exchange, but when it starts to feel like you're sacrificing, like what you said before, when it starts to feel like you're sacrificing and you're doing all the things. Like I remember having a situation where I was doing all of the work
Yeah.
and I had to sit back and I remember asking this person and I was like, "Yo, what are you doing in this? Like this is your stuff. Like why am I sitting here working on your stuff, exuding all of my energy? I'm exhausted and you over here smiling and laughing. What's wrong with this picture?" And then I sat back for a minute and I was looking at all the things that I was doing. I was being the mastermind. I was being the creator. I was being the one on, like the things that other people would see. I was all on that. And I was like, all this stuff I done created for you, I could have created for myself. And then it's like doing that too. And like, it's like, I could support you, but like, you're not my husband. You're
Mm-hmm.
not my wife. We are not together. Like now, if it's like we we making money together, we pushing, we working. You know what I'm saying? That's one
In
thing.
a balanced union, right?
Yeah, because you having me tap into unnecessary energies, and it's like, what are you willing to sacrifice for you? Like, if you can't even sacrifice a certain energy for you, then why are
Yeah.
you doing it for other people? Because then you're submitting to them and their purpose. And you're not even submitting to your own purpose. You're not even submitting to, I don't know who believes in God, who doesn't, but I believe in God. So I'm going to say, you're not even submitting to the will that God has for you. And that has nothing to do with being male or female or anything but purpose. Like, are you able to? I hear people all the time talking about purpose and talking about all these things.
Mm.
And sometimes I sit back and I'm like, but if you truly knew what purpose was, if you truly knew what it was like to bet on yourself, if you truly knew what it was, like it's not a game. Like it is a game. And it's always a game.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it's not a game.
Mhm.
Like
Yep.
just in a multi-layer kind of thing is like it's not. oh, I like this, or oh, think about what you like, think about what you don't like, and what you keep doing, that's your purpose. No, that's what you like and what you don't like. That has nothing to do with your purpose. That has nothing to do with how you feel. It has nothing to do with your passion. Your purpose has nothing to do with any of that. And so when I hear people say, try to tell someone what
Oh
their
man.
purpose is when they don't even know their own purpose, you know what I'm saying? It's like, ooh, it's just it's that heaviness of like the girl, just the hypocrisy, the bullshit. That let's just put it out. This is my motherfucking show. It's the bullshit. And how much bullshit are you gonna hear when you can see straight, that intuition that you talk, when you see straight through motherfuckers and then they start saying bullshit? You know
To
what I'm saying?
retain their own identity. Yeah.
It's like somebody telling me, you know, eh, 5 ways to be more confident. And you looking at them and you like, yo, you insecure as fuck. How you gonna teach me about confidence? You know? And it's like seeing that, like, we're not in an age where you can just talk. If your walk isn't talking for you, honey, like,
Yes. And once you click that into your own energy, because you don't need to proclaim it from the rooftops, you can speak for yourself when you walk into a room. People feel it. You don't even have to prove what you've like embodied versus not. It's 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 felt. It's like that quote that's kind of like, how can you tell who to keep in your circle, who not, or whatever? And it's like, see how you feel around them. Because, for example, just then when you were talking, I didn't have to say a word, and I was just like beaming you up because I was like, she is expressing and letting like all these things come through that she needs to, you know what I mean? And speaking of purpose and energetic reserves, I was really thinking about, how many people would actually be closer to their purpose if instead of prioritizing some mission, they instead prioritized their energetic reserves and on the days that they didn't have anything to rest. Because actually, from prioritizing your own health and your own like mental well-being, that's going to bring you closer to that God source feeling of mission than actually when you're just pushing and searching. You know what I mean? It's like in those
mm,
moments as you fill up the cup that you actually are able to like sink in for a moment and have a connection with who you are. Because, like you said, there is so much commonality of people just always working on empty, and we're all just kind of like spouting this water
yeah,
out by trying to be helpful to one another. But there are some things other people can't do for you, and like, it's why I love the concept of like knowing oneself and self-awareness, because then you can communicate like what it is that you need, and then most of all you can bring it to yourself, you know what I mean? And what you said about that heavy feeling, it's because you want to be recognized in the way that you're always recognizing other people, and you want to be given to in the way that you're always giving to other people, and the fact that you even know that about yourself is incredible and powerful. But the solution isn't to keep that pattern then, you know what I mean? Because
right.
you're actually only giving permission energetically for other people to keep that pattern, and that's why I'm such a fan of like honesty and just speaking the truth, because a lot of people feel the same things but they don't want to like say it, potentially. And it
Yeah.
brings so much relief to just be like, oh, this is how I feel right now in this moment. And I just really feel, what you just shared a lot around. It's exhausting, it's heavy, and like the martyrdom energy of just like sacrificing oneself for another isn't always noble. There's like another quote that I love, and it says, it inspired me a lot when I was younger because I was always thinking about other people to the point that I didn't even know like what I like to do in my spare time. I didn't really know like what I wanted to do for a career. I was so tuned into other people's life experiences all the time and had so much like drama in my teen years that my focus was never in my own energy. It was always like, how are they? How are they? How are they? How can I help them? I was always sampling other people's lives to the point that I actually didn't like understand my own. And this happens really often with people who feel like they're like empaths, for example, or like highly sensitive people. And they're like, oh, I'm just always feeling other people's emotions and tuning into all these other things. And you really need to know when to like stop, you know. And sometimes it's subtle shifts like we talked about, like a morning dynamic where you're just like, all right, I'm turning off like all the bullshit on my phone. But sometimes it does require like a big shift, a big change, a big like, you might not have friends
Yeah.
for a solid couple months. Not really, that's pretty dramatic, but do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? You might, life as you know it, the realities of where you've been playing will shift because you're not willing to entertain the nonsense anymore. And the quote I was going to share is, you know, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, and then go do that. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive. And it's just such a real quote where it's like, we're always just trying to like fix things for other people. But how are you? And that's exactly
Yeah.
that's exactly what you were trying to say. We are the greatest example when we're like, for example, me right now, I'm like resourced. Like I feel very full. I feel like I had an amazing day where I honored myself. I feel like I don't have a lot of anxiety today because I've been like talking through shit with the people that I need to talk to about it. I've been taking actions on the things in my life that I was procrastinating on, even small shit like oil changes. You know what I mean? So I'm resourced right now too. If you want to talk to me for an hour about what you're going through, it's not going to take any of my energy, and I'm going to do it
Mm.
from such a full like loving space of like, I got you, what do you want to talk about? But what if I didn't feel that way today
Yeah.
and I still was like, yeah, I got you, I got an hour? And that's like society.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. It's like,
And then we feel worse sometimes.
exactly, and it's like, you know, I can't remember who said this. Anyways, I just feel like people,
You
I
have
think,
to know who said it.
right. I think it was one of my friends, and she was like, can I have permission from you to just like lay all my shit on you really quick? And I was, I really appreciate that you asked that, because
Yeah.
sometimes people just, it's like your friends are not a replacement for your therapist or your healer, and sometimes we expect our friends and we expect these people to be there, and they might not be in the mental, they might not have the mental capacity or patience to even be there that day, like of just saying like, how are you? But then also at the same time it's like, damn, how do I still be an open, sacred space for people
Yeah.
while still holding on to, like holding on to my own? Because like just in general, and I see this all the time. I see this, in the healing world. I see this in the one thing about healers that I will say is that it says it's as though we're all hermits,
Mm.
but we're like social hermits. So it's like I don't know not any healer that like answers a text message as soon as I send it, or even like, even if they do, it's only because their phone is on them, because a lot of the times it's like, okay, phone's over there. I'm not going back in the house for another 3 hours. So whoever rings, it just rings. And it's like, hey, sorry about that. I was meditating. And it's like, or I forgot, or, and it's just like, it's normal to not answer a message for 2 days just
Yeah.
because of how time, earth, humans decide to have their time, right? Or determine time. But in spirit, time is not even a thing. Like it's just like, oh, okay, it's like energetic. It's like, I'm not meant to answer this right now. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna distract that human's mind and keep them occupied with something else. And it's just having that like that honoring of oneself. That was
Yes.
something. How do you describe that honor? Because I know in Reiki, that's something that's like really kind of preached is like honor yourself,
Mm.
honor that feeling that you have. But
Yeah.
how do you honor yourself, right? While still remaining disciplined?
Yes, this is a great question. And I love what you said about phones and these obligations. It's like the word that comes to mind for me. We feel like responsibility and obligation most times where we're like leaving our boundaries to like attend to another situation. And so really, what was your question again? I'm weaving it back.
Yeah, how do you balance out between honoring oneself and
Mhm.
discipline?
Mm, mm. Well, you do martial arts. I'm just kidding. Actually all about commitment and discipline, but it just takes practice. It's like a consistent thing, and oftentimes it's using your voice, you know what I mean? Because other people can't read your mind, and if they're, like, needing you for something and you're not equipped, you just need to know how to, like, express that, and it often only gives them permission to, one, like, figure it out on their own, which is beautiful, and it also allows them to see, like, what real communication and vulnerability, like, looks like. Like, your friend set a great example by being like, hey, there's this thing I want to talk to you about. Like, what time would work? Or, like, are you free right now? Like, what are you up to? Because a lot of people just want to, like, come in and dump. And it's not something that we are, like, often equipped to handle unless, like I said, we're, like, resourced and in a good place. And one example that kind of comes to mind for me, it's really just like a story, which is a better way to answer this question, is I think we need to let go of thinking we need to do it all and like be the answer for other people.
Mm,
We think like, what if I don't get back to them in a few hours? They need me. Like they just hit me up and they're going through something. Like you said, we can't like play God like that. And so a perfect example, I was actually working on my boundaries and I was like, I made this commitment to myself mentally where I thought, because for example, make that commitment and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to not answer a call when it comes in if I just don't feel like talking. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter
mm,
what it's about. If I'm like about to step into a meditation or do something for myself, I'm going to use that 15 minutes when I'm driving in the car to just be and listen to music rather than be like, energetically with another person. We need to stick to that commitment and we'll get tested. You often get tested once you make this big commitment to yourself. So what I found is that I said, I'm going to take a few days to just like not talk to any friends. I feel very like overwhelmed. Clearly I'm ignoring some stuff going on and like I need to like be for a few days to figure out what's going on in my body and my mind right now. Like I don't feel well. I felt just like it got to the point where like someone would call me and I would just get like angry kind of. Have you ever had that happen where you're like, I don't have the ability, like, why are these people always calling me? And that's like a big sign for you to be like, whoa, fam, like what's going on here? Because people love you. They're calling you because they just like love you and they want to talk, but you're getting like overwhelmed because I was really depleted. I had been giving,
right.
giving, giving, giving. And that's a good sign for you to start to pay attention to your emotions, you know? So I made this commitment that I wasn't going to answer the phone, like I wasn't going to be by my phone that day. And I was going to do a meditation. So I sat down and I like shit you not, as soon as I went to start the meditation, my phone rang and it was one of my best friends. And I was like, fuck, like, because we hadn't talked in a little bit. And I was like, I have a feeling I should get this. And I was like, no, like, no, this timing right now, clearly, am I just going to like not commit to what I just laid out for myself? So I ended up doing the meditation and I didn't even text her back or anything till like that night. And it was very uncomfortable for me because, my
Mm,
mind was like, you need to like at least check in and be like, hey, I'll call you later. We have so much like obligation on our phones to other people. So literally I texted her that night and I was like, hey, I have to keep it real with you. I I shared with her my experience of like I just didn't have the reserves to talk at that moment. And she was like, I'm so glad that you did because I really did like want to call you for help on something and like I needed to really talk about something I was going through. But since you didn't answer, she had this amazing experience where she like transmuted and worked through all of it herself. And she was like, I really needed that. And it was really empowering. So thank you for not answering. And I was like, this is why we need to always listen to what's coming up because, like, that force had my back. And that's what I mean by like, we have to trust that other people can find the tools that they need and we don't have to be the one for them all the time.
Yes. Yes. That
You know
is
what I
so
mean?
that's golden. That's
We're
golden.
trying
I'm
to do
over
it
here.
all for everyone. And that means that we're keeping them from helping themselves sometimes. Sometimes.
Yeah. It's like I'm not even ignoring you because I'm teaching you something. It's like I'm literally teaching myself. And in this process of me having my lesson, clearly you must be in the classroom too. And so it's like tempting, like what you said. And it's like when you say, it's like, like, have you ever been like, okay, I'm gonna go on a no sugar fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, now nobody ever has birthday cake. Nobody ever has brownies or cookies. None of that. You never offered that anyway. And the first day that you're like, I'm doing this, that's the day. It's the whole week. Everybody has something. And you're
Oh, for
like,
sure.
really,
Mm-hmm.
guys? Like, y'all don't ever have this stuff. Or is it that you're so focused that you never notice it? And now that you're focused on not having this thing, now you're noticing it everywhere. So it has like the opposite effect. But it's just like that just like what you just said was so gold, because being able to be honest with the people around you, like,
Yeah.
that's money, to have that supportive environment that's like, look, we're all going through it, or we all are feeling it,
Mm-hmm.
and being vulnerable enough in a space where you can say that, because that's so important to say. Like, I had a conversation with a friend earlier, and I remember this friend was just like, you know, I don't know if it's just me or just, the way that I'm thinking about these things, but, you know, like, I feel like I shouldn't be feeling this. And I was like, See, what you're not going to do is you're not going to basically say that your feelings are BS, because you're busy trying to cater to the image of what someone else wants you to have. The results speak
Mm-hmm.
every single time. Results speak. And if you're not listening to the results, people are like, don't worry about the results. No, worry about the results. Look at them, analyze them, and think about your actions, what you did that time, and then change it. You can't just go to the next thing without looking at the results of that thing and being like, where did I go wrong here? Or where did I even go right here?
Yeah.
Right? Like, where did I go right here? Where in this situation, you can literally go through the same situation. And in one situation, you did amazing. And in the other situation, you did terrible. And it's
Yes.
like, there was something different, whether it was your energy, whether it was who you spoke to right before you did the thing, whether it was who you spoke to right after you did the thing. There's always those factors, and each of those factors play an important role in your failure or your success.
Yeah. And it's like the ability to reflect is what you're talking about, like to
Yes.
reflect and gather information from that. And like one thing I always try to like inspire people to do is to like start to observe the patterns of your life, because all the characters or the relationships or the people or the experiences are always going to fluctuate, but most times they're going to have an underlying like core theme. You know what I mean? Like, say for example, you're dating someone and you're like, man, they just like never ask how I'm doing. I seem to give, and like I want to feel more nourished. So maybe you end that relationship, and then the next one things are good, and then you kind of start to feel that like disappointment again, and you start to withdraw, like no one really cares how am I doing, how come I keep giving to them, blah blah blah. There comes a point where you're like, this is an energetic emotional theme within myself. What parts of me are disappointed? When did my earliest disappointments begin? What kind of like disappointments did my parents experience? How did that leak into my childhood? Like, what has been informing me? And is that like part of my subconscious? You know what I mean? And now you're only ever seeing the things that support that belief within yourself because this happens to people all the time. So then when you are able to, like, this is something people at home can do, identify like a core emotion that you've been feeling for like a while. So disappointment, for example, is our example. And ask yourself like what it is that you're not getting from other people or from the world. What's that thing that is just constant lack for you? So you could say something like, I just feel like no one's ever proud of me. I feel like I'm doing so much and like I just want to be told that like I'm doing well. And then look at, are you telling yourself that? Like, are you
Mm.
providing that for yourself? And then you can start to step into that energy more and change it from the inside out. This was a big thing I used to go through where I felt like I just was like crushing it and I was doing so much for other people and I was always showing up. I was always answering the phone. I was such a good person, but I just felt like nothing was ever like good enough and people weren't seeing me. Like I was just like, don't you see
Mhm.
how like much I give, how loving I am? Like I'm like always available. Like I'm like kind of this like powerful, just angelic presence on earth. And I feel like it's just like no one ever even checks in on me. And then I realized like I was never telling myself that I was like proud and I was never allowing myself to see accomplishments. I was only moving to the next thing all the time. Like I would do something incredible and I wouldn't even like celebrate it. I'd be like, all right, like cool, what's next? And so wasn't even occupying the energy that I wanted from others. And that's a big reason why it kept happening,
Yeah.
you know? So the ability to like perceive patterns of your emotions is unique to you and it's feedback for you to be like, what's going on? What's reflecting back to me in my reality right now? And like, though it's not in my control, my mind and my like ability to nurture what I need most is in my
Yeah.
control.
That's so, I love that. I love that. Like your ability to nurture. And just like, I just
Yeah.
listening to you just now just gave me like so much like, like there it is. That's it. That's it. And just even
Yeah.
just navigating through, the heaviness, the, it doesn't even feel heavy anymore, but it's like sometimes I notice with myself at least. I can't talk
Mhm.
about anyone else, but I've gotten
Right.
to
We can
know,
only use personal examples, really.
yeah, like I've gotten to know me really, really good over the years. Like I know me like the back of my hand. I remember this one, I was dating this man and he was like, I know you like the back of your hand, like the back of your, like my hand. And I was like, damn, I don't even know myself like the back of my hand. So I
Like,
was like, I'm going on a mission. And the mission is know thyself, period.
mm,
And I just, when I feel things, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What's that? What, what is that? That's foreign. That's weird. That's weird. And it's like, that's why I used to think, oh, is this like intuition or is this like, until I started studying this stuff. And, the deeper that you dig in, you got to start doing some studying.
mhm.
And I'm just like looking at it and I'm like, yo, like, where is that coming from? And sometimes what I learned was when there's repressed expression,
Yeah.
because I'm such an expressive person via anger, via sadness, via happiness, via excitement. It doesn't matter, no matter what that alchemy looks like. Some people can call it extreme, but I like to call it powerful because the
Mhm.
powerful reserve. So
Intense.
it's like whether you're sad, whether you're mad, whether it all comes out with the same energy. So like I like to tell people as excited on the excited scale that you can get is as pissed off on that scale you can get. I'm afraid of nice people. Like
Mm.
I'm afraid of people who are like super quiet and calm and like super duper calm. Like, nah, 'cause I ain't making you mad because you be the one that done try to kill me in my sleep. And you ain't got time. Like, I'm not trying to be on one of them shows, and it's just
Yeah.
like, because when people snap, they snap, because they've tried every method inside. And I know that from even becoming more patient and just like in this journey just acknowledging this whole self, acknowledging the whole self, not
Yes.
just the star seed part, but like what about that little dark side? Like if you don't know that dark side of yourself, then how you supposed to go anywhere?
Yeah. And a lot of people repress those emotions because we've labeled some as good and some as bad, you know? And so it's like those shy people who don't want to communicate or really express what they're experiencing. It's probably because they've been shut down at some point related to that. And like they've been taught that it isn't good for them to feel anger. So many nice people think being angry is bad. And it's like, I used to have a really messed up relationship with anger. And I thought anger meant that I was like making the world more bad or something because there was so much anger, there was so much hatred that I didn't want to like be a part of it. And then I saw this acupuncturist who had shared how like every emotion has a purpose. And my anger is also a creative emotion because I actually love talking about anger because what makes you angry is like a wound in you that you're here to like present medicine with. You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
you've been through an experience that you get so upset that you want to protect other people from having that experience and you're angry. And anger is actually a creative force because the opposite of anger is like a solution. You know what I mean? So what she had given me the example of is like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, you know, all of these organizations, like all of these social movements came from an injustice and came from anger. So if you're not going to like imagine if someone went through a loss and just never expressed that anger and they were like, well, these things happen. There's like no accountability, there's no change, there's no action, there's no revolution that takes place. You know what I mean? It was really
mm,
powerful because then I was like, oh, because at the beginning of the appointment, I was like, I don't really have any like anger though. And I think she just saw right through it. She was like, there's got to be something, you know, that makes you angry. And ever since then, I realize that whenever I get really angry about something I see happening, it's because I have a very specific, like attuned relationship with that thing. You know what I mean? I
yeah,
often I get, I get angry because it's something that I could maybe like have a solution to. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
We often go through experiences and there's like definitely a mission associated with it, just like that, you know, example of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. What if she just got angry but never communicated like, hey, there's a blind spot here, like this isn't okay, we need to like come together to make a change about this. But anger, people think isn't meant for them to feel and they just kind of need to like suck it up. But what makes you angry is not what makes me angry. We are all vastly different. So I think there's like a message that you need to pay attention to. You know what I mean? I get really angry often at like pharmaceutical drugs only because my dad has mental health issues and I grew up seeing him like zombie. But that doesn't mean that pharmaceutical drugs are bad. That was just my experience with them. So there's just one part of me who cares a lot about mental health because the solution for me was helping his mind and helping his mindset. So it's like I could have just ignored that and never became really passionate about holistic health or other things. But you might get angry about something that I don't know anything about because you have a different life path than me. So we have to pay attention to like what our emotions are because they resonate at different levels for different things.
Whoo, y'all. I don't know if y'all had the live recording, y'all listening to the actual recording. She just laid and gave the game to find your purpose. Now that's how you find your purpose. Like that's it. That
Mm.
is it. And it's like just hearing you say that. Girl, it's been an hour already. We're gonna go ahead and close this up. But hearing you say that is so, oh man, it's like I see people dismiss anger all the time. And I see people dismiss, I was called 2 adjectives recently. I've been getting called quite a few names here lately, and I'm like, "Yo."
Pay attention to what they are.
Right, and I'm like they were like, "You're pushy and forceful." And I'm like, Give me what I want then. No. What you call pushy and forceful, I call confident and persistent. Give me what I want. And it's like, because I'm one of those people, I'm relentless. Like if it's something that I want, I'm not stopping till I get it. You
Persistent.
know, it's
Mm-hmm.
persistence. But if you see it as pushy and forceful, you need to ask yourself why you're not giving me what I'm telling you to give me. And I was just like, yo, your feelings are none of my business. I didn't ask for feelings. I asked for this information. Give me this information. And it's like, well, I'm supposed to give me this information. And it's like sometimes, and I would like to just say this is closing, like you're teaching people how to treat you daily.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it was like, well, once I got what I wanted, it was like I was pushing and forceful. But you just taught me that that's how I need to treat you in order to get what I want. Right? It's like when I was nice about it, you didn't give it to me. And now when I'm acting like an asshole, now you give me voila, here it is. But then I'm supposed to apologize. No, you need to apologize to yourself and ask yourself, why do you need to be treated with such abusive behavior in order to listen? And it reminds me of when I was a teacher. And I used to ask my students that all the time. I was like, now when I'm like, everyone have a seat. All right. Everybody have a seat.
Maybe sit if you want. They're
Have
like,
a
no.
seat. And I was like, crazy Toto's about to come out. Have a seat. I was like, five,
Ah!
four, three, two. And when they saw this face, they were like, everybody sit down, everybody sit down. Cause I was a TikTok bomb and they knew it. And it was like, and I used to ask them, I was like, but why do I have to do that? And it's like, I don't
You're
mind.
being direct.
Yeah, like I don't mind. And it was like I'm direct the first time. Why I gotta act like an ass? And then you got the nerve to be like, and then she hurt my feelings. No, you hurt your own feelings because you wouldn't do what you said that you would do in order to go to the next level for yourself. So just in conclusion, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on to the show and just doing your thing because that was amazing. Like,
Mm.
I'm so glad that you came on here and just was like, intuitively, I'm feeling like, X, Y, and Z, and I'm just feeling like I don't want to do this. So I'm glad that, we were able to just talk through it and just both. Cause I think you might have been feeling my stuff, like my heaviness and there was
Could
a lot
be.
of like, I used to have like a healers group that I met with so often. And I was thinking, oh, like maybe healers and coaching are very similar. And it's not. It's not. They're very trauma ignorant in the
Mm-hmm.
coaching field. And so
Yes. I
there
have my coaching certification. I don't use the title sometimes only because I think there's a lot of people who shouldn't have that title.
well, yeah, it's like it's trauma ignorance. And it's like, well, don't feel that. No, no, you don't tell you don't tell someone not to, and like that's healer rule number one. It's
It's
like
fucked up. I
you
know.
think your way through. No, no, let's feel this first. And let's
Mhm.
go back and then let's move forward. I'm not saying don't move forward, but I'm saying stop.
Yes.
Stop for a minute because it's like running a marathon and you keep tearing up your ACL or your meniscus. And
Hmm.
it's like, no, no, no. It's time. We need to stop right here
Yeah.
because if you don't fix this right now, when you think you finishing the marathon and you think you about to sprint, you gonna kill yourself. So let's stop right here. But it's like, no, keep going. You got to be persistent. Don't quit. And it's like,
Yeah. There's a difference between quitting and like just being intuitive though, because I can see how at the beginning you could read it as like, oh, maybe she just doesn't want to talk about that topic anymore because she's just not feeling it. So it's like a cop out. Like you need to commit, you need to raise to promises you made. That's like different. And I agree. you need to like stick to your word, but there's a palpable difference when you start to realize like, oh, like a way for you to track it for people who are like, well, how do I know this is like commitment or intuition? Like, am I just like commitment phobed? It's like, no, you can tell because the experience for me wasn't like, ooh, this is gonna be like edgy, or maybe I'm just like not in the mood. I was in the mood, but it was more so that there just felt like there was like a big disconnect. You know what I mean? And we all know that feeling of like resistance to the point that you're like, I don't even know if I'm like synchronized with knowing what to say about this. And I always know, we can always speak on the things that are most natural to us. So point, it was a beautiful example. And yeah, I mean, I just wanted to have a very like natural conversation with you, and I always trust that everything moves in the way that it's meant to, and all the topics and all the things that were shared for everyone's ears that they come across are meant to be, because we both came from a very grounded, honest space. We weren't forcing things. We weren't like, we weren't trying to mold into a frame that we made a month ago because we're new people now.
Oh, come on now. Come on. And that's the transformation of just everything. And it's so crazy because it's like literally been like a few weeks. And it's like it's amazing how your perspective, your perception, your feeling of that day, and just even us honoring this topic, and honoring, taking the next step, taking the next,
Yeah.
proclamation of self, really, and going to that step. Because what makes me angry is just like, I just, who it makes me angry more than anything. And I think that is where, purpose comes in, like you were saying. But when it goes beyond empathy, and it's like, if someone can't acknowledge someone else's reality, whether they agree with it or not, and that's what this show is all about, whether they agree with it or not, it does not make them, they can be doing wrong, yes, but at what point is there room for redemption? Like genuine redemption, not you resigning because you got caught, not you saying sorry because you're sorry at the results that happened to you because people found out about something. No, no, no. Like a genuine, like, I've grown from this. And I think it's just so important to see that growth. Like whenever I get an apology, I'm just like, are you sorry though? And it's just like, I'm not gonna say I'm
Like,
not
yeah.
forgiving, but it's like I'm very forgiving. Matter of fact, I had to forgive before you even thought about saying it, because it's more self-destructive when you don't forgive. But it's like, I had to forgive you so I could heal me, but also like I don't have to accept your apology. I don't have to accept um your nonsense. I don't have to. I don't have to. And it's not about being angry. It's not about being sad. It's not about being, oh, you're resentful, or oh, you hold on to things. And it's like, nah, because I can't unsee what I saw. I
It's just
can't.
feedback, right?
Yeah,
You don't have
it's
to do anything.
feedback. Yeah,
Yeah.
like we don't have to. So like, how
You
do
don't have to
you?
apologize, and it could not feel right to accept it in that moment because part of you just really doesn't actually feel like it accepted into your body. Like, it's that simple. And you can just say something like, hey, I like recognize and I respect and I admire so much that you're like opening up to me in this way. I still need some time. Thank you for
Yeah,
understanding.
yeah.
Like, boom. You know what I mean?
Mm.
You don't really owe anyone anything, but once again, taking care of yourself. And that actually creates a lot of powerful shifts for people.
Hmm. You're right. You're so right. I love it. We could go on and on.
We
I have to stop this because we will go on for like 2 hours. So I just want to say,
We've done it before.
we have. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on to the show and
Thank
just like bringing yourself, because I know for me, I feel a lot better. um Not say I just threw all my shit out there, but uh
Yeah.
but I mean, we can only speak from experiences. And I know this is something that I'm not just speaking for myself. These are things that I've been coaching people. I've been doing these things, and I notice a lot of the times when I'm coaching, I'm also implementing, the healing practices at the same time. Because I'm like, yo, people have this mind, but like they also need healing at the same time. So it's like
Mhm.
it's dope to have the kind of training that we do, especially with the coaching, because they're hand in hand. It's
Yeah.
like we got to go in this direction, but wait, it's
Yeah.
like as a healer, you have the ability to be like, wait, come back, little grasshopper. You
Yes.
thought you were leaving. Nope. But we're trying to get you further, not faster. We're
Yeah.
trying to get you further. And if you go fast, you're going to miss all of this that's
Yeah.
going to hold you back from getting there. So
Yeah.
instead of trying to move fast, let's be efficient. Let's go step by step. It's like the rabbit versus the turtle in the little race. But
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you so much for joining the show, because you've just been like literally a blessing. So
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I always love talking to you, and like my energy definitely has just been the calm nurture today. But before we go, just because I care about you and I love that you did like share so much today, what's one thing before we get off here so you can inspire other people and make a commitment to yourself with
yeah.
spirit? What's one thing that you think after this talk you want to do moving forward to continue to keep like that weight off your shoulders and to honor yourself? Like what's one thing that comes up for you?
I think even when you said that, it's just like letting go. Like letting go from like what I said, the end result. It's also
Mhm.
when I'm speaking
The
to people.
destination.
Yeah, when I'm speaking to people, I feel like I'm speaking to myself a lot of the times, because I'm like, yeah, I needed that advice. You know what I'm saying? Like I needed to hear that. But it's like for me personally, it's just like let it go and let it be what it is, and just recommit to you, because you've committed to everything and everyone else, and you've been a glorified anchor. But at what point? Yes, commitment to yourself
I'm
and
calling it in for
acceptance.
you.
Yes. Like it's just, yeah, committing to self. It's just like somewhere in that I forgot. I forgot about me, because I was so excited. Like you said, feel alive. And it's just like, I feel alive serving people and
Yes.
talking to people and being around people. But then it's like, then you get depleted and you're stuck with you again. And there's nothing wrong with being stuck with you. You're always stuck with you all the time. But it's like replenishing that energy. And then you're like, well, actually, if I step back from this, who else is going to do it? And then when you start to recognize your worth, you're like, nah, I want to get what I'm worth. It's like being in a terrible relationship and you realize you've been doing every single little thing in it. And then you're like, wait a minute. I've been keeping this relationship afloat. Let me see what you can do. Let me just see. Go ahead. I'm just gonna watch. And it's like you become so much in action that you forget to observe and have that balance. So how about you? I want to put that same
Ooh.
question to you.
So you said observe, have balance, let go, commit to the self. What is one thing that I'm going to commit to doing for myself moving forward? Um, I am, my big thing lately is not overthinking,
Mm.
being more in my heart instead of in my mind. Um, because the mind, like we talked about at the very beginning, seeks to have a plan for the future. And one, there's a difference, between having discipline and having goals and structure, but also like not being open to surprises and blessings and adaptability, really. So for me, it's like I don't need to have like any fears around what's to come in like many years in my life, or whether I should be like working harder, not doing enough, et cetera, et cetera. And I really need to prioritize my heart, because from the material, like my life is great. I'm crushing it. But like I said in the beginning, it's like being
Yeah.
proud. I'm just not being proud enough of myself, and being in an emotional space. I'm always usually in a mental space with myself. Like, okay, that was great. Look at this. What's next? Instead of like, Lauren, you know?
Yeah.
That
That's that
merge the
masculine.
physical. It's how we actually change the physical, because then I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do now? I feel so joyful, instead of like, well done. What's next? Like, it's just not fun. Like, no one wants to live that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm just occupying like more of my pure childlike self that's proud, rather than motivated to just do more.
Yeah, she said she's gonna be a cheerleader to her goddamn self with her own pom
Yes.
poms.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Yes.
But yeah. And
I
now we've
love
spoken it out there, so we know like our clear way forward.
yes, our clear way forward. And I prompt that question to everyone in the audience right now to just what's that thing that you're gonna commit to, and that just that thing. I want to talk to you after this, Lauren, because I actually have this dope thing that I'm not gonna say out loud on here, but that I wanna ask you and talk to you about because it's just
Sure.
phenomenal. Just everything you hit on today is just like boom, boom, bam. So I
Real
just want to
time
say,
alignment. I love it. Thank you so much again. You're so
mm.
amazing and beautiful, and I'm so proud of you for like offering this space for people.
Thank you. No, no, I appreciate you, and I'm gonna put you backstage, and then I'm gonna put
Get
you.
rid of me. Put me in the
But
back.
but stay there. Don't go, because
Oh,
once
okay,
we're
okay.
gonna turn it off. Um, oh, I didn't even see it. Hey, Linda. I had it on
Hi,
the big
Linda.
screen, and Hidayah is here, and Shantae. Linda said, "Love this. Have had to do this before, but it took a while to get there." And she said, "I love the part talking about you teaching yourself to take care of yourself, and it also helps others to respect your boundaries." And then
Hmm.
she said, "I remember going on a sugar fast and one of my vendors bringing me 2 dozen praline praline cookies. I
Oh my
don't know
God, praline. It's a nut,
praline.
I think. Right? I don't
I
know.
don't know. I haven't heard of You see how many? I stick to one flavor.
Tell us, audience. I know, right?
Yes.
I think it's like it's a type of cookie. Yeah.
Yeah, she said praline cookie. I gave them all away to the office, but it was hard. Girl, it's the one time. Like, you ain't never give me none of these cookies. And now all of a sudden you done came back from Japan that nobody knew where you were, and then you come back with it. But thank you, and thank you all for joining in on the conversation. I love this because in Trance U, I'm learning it's a lot of women that follow
Mm,
this. Not too
yeah.
many men are here. So I love it because it's our sacred space. Unless I'm interviewing a man. But even then,
Yeah.
it'll be like his friends that show up, but it won't
Right.
be like the women show up, regardless. So I love it. I'm like, we about to make Trance U a whole woman's brand.
More feedback. That's what I always say. Getting out of the mind too. It's really easy. It's such a life hack to literally just observe what's coming up naturally. Like, that could be a whole. I'm trying to. I know we need to go, so I'm not even going to go into it. But everyone tries to manipulate things of how it should be going, instead of like receiving feedback of like literally what like spirit is bringing to them. Like,
Yes. I love that. Well, Lauren, I'm gonna see you in the back, girl.
okay.
All right.
Bye,
Bye. Thank
everyone.
you for coming.
Thank you so much. It's an honor. See you
No,
later.
the honor was mine. And there you have it, Miss Lauren Merrill blessing our stage. We're going to go ahead and close out. And I just want to say to the viewers, please, please, please make sure you reflect. Make sure you have that person or even open up to yourself and just have fun with you, because at the end of the day, we're all growing, we're all healing, we're all looking at our own traumas, we're all improving, and nobody is perfect here. So I just want to say thank you so much once again to Miss Lauren Merrill for just coming on and basically just y'all just watched me in a session, in a healing session, one-on-one, low key. But I know I can tell you one thing though. When I first started hosting the show, I felt like I had this booming headache and it was just heavy. And then right now I feel as light as a feather. So I'm so glad and so honored. And y'all got to witness the process. So sometimes it's just expressing yourself. So don't be afraid to express yourself in a healthy way. Find people around you, no matter what your career is or what you think your career is. Everyone needs someone. Yeah, you were born alone and you die alone, but you're never alone. So, all right, this is Khadija Toto on Entrance You, and we out.